Hello everybody, my name is Nemo. How are you doing today? We're going into my deck manager and we're looking at Mana Mastery today. So it's gonna be another deck build video. And let's get right into it. I haven't had too much sleep. It's been one of those crazy days, you know. Where at the start of the day you're like, well, I've got pretty much a whole day. I want to do some recording. And then all of a sudden, something comes up, and then, you know, it's an hour or two later, and then you're like, well, time to do my recording, and then somebody's like, hey man, you want to do this, or can you please do this for me, and all of a sudden the whole day is gone by, it's 11 o'clock in the evening, and I'm sitting here and I still have a lot of recording to do, so let's get right on it, and tell you all I know about the deck called Mana Mastery, the 5-color deck. Which, you know, this deck is hilarious. I love it. I'm a big fan. I like decks like this. I loved Dark Heavens in the previous game for all its board wipes. And I really like this deck as well. So, one thing really important about this deck, you gotta get your lands. You gotta get all the lands you can get. So, I only excluded one Rampant Growth and one Cultivate. That means I'm running all of the Terramorphic Expanses, both of the Evolving Wilds, 3 Rampant Growths, 3 Cultivates. Naya Charms can count as mana fixing because you can get back your Cultivate with it. So I count that. If needed, you can do that. All Suns Dawn, I guess, can do that too. Allied Strategies can help you get your manas if you only have blue and a few if you don't have all your colors yet. And of course, there is the Pale Recluses. Pale Recluses? I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm not a native English speaker. I'm sorry I failed you. Pale Recluses. I always looking at the picture from a distance, it looks like something's climbing the Eiffel Tower. But whatever. And looking at it zoomed up, it looks like there's a face over here. Alright, wow, never noticed that before. Anyways, and there's a mage over here. Huh. Anyways, total randomness. So these guys, since they have forest cycling and plain cycling, they can be pretty vital, or at least a good addition to the deck. Because forests, obviously you need your forest, because Cultivate and Rampant Growth require forests. So if you want to get your other colors, you need to get your forest first. Green is therefore the most important color in any kind of deck that involves green. And that's always the way it's gonna be in Magic, is if there's a green in your deck, that's probably the color you want to focus on, because it has the best mana fixing. So, green, most important color. And then there's plains, which are also very, very important to this deck, and definitely come at a second place. And if the opponent doesn't have any way to land fuck you, then getting your second plains is more important than getting your second forest. Because there are actually cards that require you to have 2 plains, such as Day of Judgment. As well as Imperial Archangel. So, to sum it up, you want to get your forest. If you're mulliganing with this deck, get a forest. That's all you gotta do. Get a forest or a Terramorphic Expanse or an Evolving Wilds. The ramp can come second. Like, you can draw your ramp, but there's at least 6 sources of ramp here. That's more than you have forest in your deck. So, forest more important than ramp in your opening hand. Just saying. Anyways, now that we know this, I don't include the Pale Recluses. And I'll tell you why. Because this deck has to be fast. Because this deck is already kinda slow. And the way you lose with this deck is not because you don't have better cards or more cards than the opponent. Because you're going to win with card advantage. And you're going to win with having better cards, because your cards are generally better than most other cards that the other decks have. That's the advantage of playing a 5-color deck after all. Your spells are bound to be more powerful. Since you can pick and choose between the different colors to get the best results. So, you're not gonna lose from card advantage, you're not gonna lose from having more powerful cards. What you're going to lose to is tempo disadvantage. Being slower than the opponent. And being burned before you can play those powerful spells, being milled before you can play those powerful spells, playing only one creature a turn, and having that creature being bounced or just otherwise taking advantage of your time while they mill you or burn you or get their infinite time combo going with the Panoptic Mirror and the Time Warp thing or other such things. Or they use your own powerful spells against you. Stuff like that. So that's how you're gonna lose with this deck. Or just because Goblins kills you before you can do anything. So what you want to make sure is that you've got something to play each turn. And forest cycling and plane cycling is not something to do. That's just slowing you down. So I find it more important to just make sure you start with a forest in hand, rather than having to awkwardly cycle into a forest and having that take up the turn that you would have otherwise spent playing Rampant Growth. So either way, that's all I'm saying. That's why I'm not including those Recluses. They're a little bit too slow for me. I also don't include one Rampant Growth and one Cultivate because, well, I tested it and this is the way I like my mana. I felt that I don't get mana screwed this way. In fact, I get mana flooded a little bit more than I get mana screwed still. But I feel like it's a safe bet this way, and I don't want to have less than 3 Cultivates and 3 Rampant Growth. You want to definitely get your land, and you want to get it quickly. And that's also something, if you're testing this deck, and you're looking at your ramp, if you're getting too much or enough, then you always got to keep in mind that, yeah, maybe you're going to draw some ramp cards later on in the game when you don't need them. But the most important thing is that you draw them early on when you do need them. And drawing a little bit more late is preferable over drawing a little bit too few early. So that's just something you gotta keep in mind there. Anyways, having done the I guess the most important part of this deck, the ramping to your manas, because that is important. There's one more thing I want to discuss though, and that is if you're playing the mirror match, or you happen to be playing against Mana Mastery. The strategy I see a lot of people use is to blow up my forest. Now that is of course very powerful if I don't have a second forest in hand. Because then I can play my Rampant Growth and my Cultivates. However, should I have a second forest in hand, maybe you've seen me get my second forest through Cultivate, or you've seen me already play my second forest and I have 2 forests on the table, then of course it doesn't really matter if you blow up 1 forest. So what's the best thing to do in that case is to blow up my islands. Use your Vindicates on my islands. Why? Because there's only 3 islands in the deck. I can have my Rampant Growth. Let's say you blow up my island. So then I Rampant Growth and I get my other island, right? But there's only 2 more islands in my deck. All you gotta do is blow up 2 more islands and I'm done. Like, I can't play anything anymore. If you've got enough removal to get rid of 3 islands, then I've done. Then you've won, basically. Because I can't play anything that requires islands, and that's a lot of spells in this deck. So, because there's only 3 islands, that's a good strategy to use. However, obviously, if the opponent only has 1 forest on the field, then you want to go for the forest though, because that just shuts them down from playing the Rampant Growth and the Cultivates. And unless you know you're gonna have 3 removal spells for the lands, then I guess you can just take the strategy of going for their islands, knowing that they're not gonna have more. Of course, the opponent can have his deck built in such a way that he has 4 islands and 4 plains, but that means he doesn't use Day of Judgment, and that seriously weakens this deck, and I wouldn't recommend playing in such a way. But you never know what the opponent is doing, so you could very well be doing that strategy, and then you're still screwing yourself because you're counting 1 less island and he has 1 more. And that would suck. Oh well. Anyways, just a strategy I wanted to share because it's kind of interesting. And it certainly helps knowing that in the mirror match. So let's move on here. There's Savage Twister, which I really like this card. Yeah, it's a one-sided Day of Judgment basically, because the problem I have with Day of Judgment, again going back to the story I told you about the recluse spiders. Sorry, let me get a drink. I feel like I have to cough. Alright, feeling subsiding. Alright, no. Excuse me. Ah, darn it. Darn it. I wanted to keep that in me. Oh well. Savage Twister. So, the good thing about Savage Twister is a one-sided ref effect. Obviously, Lavalanche is always the better card and always the best one. Well, basically, Lavalanche is the best card in this deck, though. And I guess we'll get to that in a second, though. But Day of Judgment. The good thing about Day of Judgment is it always gets them. Like, if they have a lot of toughness, then maybe you won't be able to kill them with Savage Twister, but you will be able to kill it with the Day of Judgment. And it's a little bit more foolproof that way. But the problem is that Day of Judgment also kills your guys. Whereas Savage Twister, your guys have more toughness, or at least likely your guys will have more toughness than the opponent's creatures, and so you'll probably only kill their creatures while your side of the board remains intact. And that's why Savage Twister is a really useful card, because it means you don't have to slow roll. You don't have to wait to play your creatures because you're holding a Day of Judgment. No, you're holding a Savage Twister, so you're like, oh, well, I can play my creatures, and if he plays some creatures, then I Savage Twister them, and my creatures survive, and I swing in and deal some damage. So that's really good. It's really good to just be able to do stuff with this deck and not be durdling around, waiting and playing reactively all the time, because that ends up losing you the game against some strategies that don't require them to have creatures, or they may be able to get some damage in with haste creatures or something. There's always a way to get by the Day of Judgments, you know? And Mill doesn't care about you wiping the board as long as they're milling you. Burn doesn't care about you wiping the board as long as they're burning your face off. So that's not a foolproof strategy. So Savage Twister is a nice card to have. However, the problem with it is that you can't cascade into it, because it's an X-cast spell, and you can't. If you cascade into an X-cast spell, then X is always 0. This isn't always this. I guess it requires a little bit more explanation. Not that it matters for this deck, but you could cascade into a spell that has a secondary cost that is X, such as, for instance, a kicker, and you would be able to pay the kicker cost. You would also, if you cascade into if you cascade into a spell that has a fixed casting cost, but says you may pay X life and then it does X damage to something or whatever, then that would be a secondary cost, because it's not actually in the mana cost, it's a secondary extra cost, and you would be able to pay X for that. So, but in this case, since X is part of the mana cost, you won't be able to pay anything but 0 for the for the purposes of cascading into it. Now, I don't run the Maelstrom Nexus, but I do run the Sphinx that cascades. Enigma Sphinx, because it's one of the it may just be the most powerful card in the deck. A creature in the deck, at least. Not card. I've already determined that Lavalanche is the most powerful card in the deck. No, Enigma Sphinx is the most powerful creature in the deck, potentially. Because it keeps recurring itself, keeps coming back, and that means that you've got more than 10 creatures that you would otherwise have. And, because otherwise you may not have enough creatures. But since it recurs itself, it's really, really useful. So it's an important card to the deck, and that means that it's a little bit annoying, as Savage Twister is really the only card right now that I wouldn't want to cascade into at any point in the game, and get any advantage out of it. So only one of them for that reason, and also because it may not deal with like the mirror match, whereas Day of Judgment would. Like, it doesn't deal with creatures that are too big for you to burn with this. So Day of Judgment is a little bit safer of an option there, but still a very powerful card, and certainly a very good tempo play, which is that kind of needs. And then I guess we'll move on to the Bant Charm, because I know it's over here and we're kind of skipping Bant here, but it sort of ties in with the mass removal theme, since the most important ability on Bant Charm is, or Bant Charm deals 2 damage to each creature, which is definitely what you want to include this card for. And any of the other modes are basically just in case that doesn't really matter, then you might want to use any of the other modes. For instance, in the mirror match, you're likely to use the exile all cards from target player's graveyard mode, which is useful if you happen to have the mana open, but it can be a tough going, and you don't always want to keep your mana open and not play anything, just in case they're going to play, I don't know, All Sun's Dawn that turn. So it's a little bit annoying in the mirror match, since you have to keep your mana open for that, and I don't know. I don't know if I really like that. So there's certainly matchups where this card isn't too useful. Against goblins, obviously, it's an incredible card because 2 damage to each creature is just what you need against goblins. So yeah, and an instant speed too. Yeah, so that's pretty good. But other than that, yeah, it does have some bad matchups, and that's why there's only one of them in the deck. And it's obviously with the mana cost requiring 3 different colors, that makes it a little bit harder to cast than Savage Twister, although you can probably cast it sooner. Either way, that brings us to, I guess, immediately Lavalanche. Again, ties in with the mass removal theme. Lavalanche deals X damage to target player and each creature he or she controls. Why is this so good? Well, because, again, you may not be able to get in there with your creatures before they burn your face off, or before they mill you. What you get into with this deck a lot is, since you only have 10 creatures, which is a really low creature count, and I really couldn't bring it any higher without excluding cards that just aren't worth excluding, you know what I mean? So, there's not much you can do about that, but that does make Lavalanche an extremely powerful card, because it just means that, hey, you know what, if you've got all the removal in the world, and I can't play anything into your removal here, and you keep bouncing my guys, or killing them as soon as I play them each turn, and I'm not doing anything with the slow, dirty deck, then Lavalanche at least will still burn your face off and win me the game. So, you know, there's not a whole lot they can do about it, unless they've got counterspells. So it's pretty foolproof that way, and all you gotta do is get in a little bit of damage, and then suddenly they're within reach of the Lavalanche to finish them off, and just hurry the game along and make you win that much faster, which is really important. So, Lavalanche, extremely good card, and even if you're not killing them with it, you're probably still wiping their entire board. And again, one-sided Wrath effect. It doesn't hurt your creatures, it doesn't even hurt you, so it's incredible. So, moving on back to the Bant Charm, since I guess we already discussed Day of Judgment. Although Pernicious Deed falls within the mass removal category. Well, this is obviously just a great card. And it destroys artifacts, creatures, enchantments. And the great thing about this card in this deck is that converted mana cost, your stuff probably has a higher converted mana cost than their stuff. So that's pretty good. Bant Charm, also just incredible. From these charms, I want to say that this is the best one. Naya Charm is really incredible too, though. But this one, I mean, counter target instant spell on its own is already almost worth a card. At least a 2-mana card would be worth counter target instant spell. There are 2-mana cards that say that. But for a 3-mana card, that having something extra, doesn't really matter what, makes it worth casting. And what it has extra is that you can potentially destroy target artifact, which doesn't happen that often, but it's a nice bonus. Or you can put target creature on the bottom of its owner's library. And that is such a powerful removal, because there's creatures like Enigma Sphinx that get put back into their library if they go in the graveyard. Well, you know what? Bant Charm says, no, that doesn't happen. It goes on the bottom instead of third from the top. So you don't get to draw it again until you're probably dead by being milled. So it doesn't matter at that point anyway. It gets rid of Phoenixes in the Chandra's deck. It gets rid of all kinds of recursion creatures. And recursion meaning creatures that come back and keep haunting you again and again. Well, this just says, you know what? I'm done with that. They're gone now. And it's even more foolproof than exile in many cases. Because some creatures do have some clause that they can't be exiled or whatever. And this even gets rid of those kind of creatures. So, just insanely powerful. Yeah. Then there's the Naya Charm. Although I guess there's nothing in the format that says they can be exiled. I don't know. Either way, I feel like it's at least as good as exiling something. Naya Charm is insane because return target card from a graveyard to its owner's hand has always traditionally been insane, and it's certainly still insane in this card, in this deck. Again, you can do whatever you want with it. If you need to get your Cultivate back with it, you can do that. You can get your Bant Charm back with it, get rid of another creature, counter another spell. Anyways, you can get back Lavalanche with Naya Charm. You can do that twice, so you can potentially play Lavalanche 3 times in the game, which is of course just ridiculous, and you could just kill someone with only playing Lavalanche, which is ridiculous. So yeah, that's pretty good. You can get back Bant Charm if you really need it against goblins. You can get back Savage Twister if you need it. You can get back a Vindicate to destroy their next island if you're playing the mirror match, right? You can get back Pernicious Deed to really make them sweat it. Anything you want. Like, there are so many powerful cards in this deck. You can get back All Sun's Dawn and get insane card advantage from playing... No, I guess I'm wrong. I'm lying. You can't get back All Sun's Dawn. It gets exiled. Haha. Testing you there. Just checking if you knew it too. I knew it, but... no, I actually did make a mistake there. But at least I remembered it as soon as I said it. But either way, it's just an incredible card, and you can get back anything you need. You can get back a Prophetic Bolt, that's already great. You can't get back Enigma Sphinx since it gets put a third from the top on your library. But I mean, it's just incredibly good either way. So definite include, if only for that ability. But then there's also the possibility of dealing 3 damage to target creature, or if needed. And this is probably when you're in a lot of trouble. Tap all creatures target play controls, and hopefully top deck something that is more useful. Although I guess potentially you could tap their creatures and then attack for lethal, and they wouldn't have the blockers. But that doesn't really happen much in this deck. This isn't really the kind of deck for that, but it's possible. So the possibility is there. But either way, it's just an incredible card. So yeah. So Vindicate, yeah, what's there to say? Destroy target permanent, anything you want. Their land can get destroyed, their artifact can get destroyed, their enchantment can get destroyed, their dude can get destroyed, whatever. It's up to you. So incredibly versatile, and gets rid of anything, any threat that you need to get rid of. So it's just it's an obvious inclusion into the deck, basically. Maelstrom Pulse. I was considering running at least one of these as an extra copy of Vindicate, I guess. But in the end I decided it wasn't really needed, and I can get more Vindicates with Naya Charm if I really need to get more Vindicates. Didn't really have that much room for it. And I consider Vindicate to be a better card than Maelstrom Pulse, but since you can mana screw your opponent, and that may be very relevant in the mirror match. But Maelstrom Pulse is good anyways. I mean, the upside is that you may potentially get rid of 2 permanents, but it's not really likely that ever happens. But the potential is there. I mean, against goblins it will be kind of useful. Although against goblins there's better cards, of course. Bant Charm being a great example there, and any of the mass removal. So yeah, since this deck does have so much mass removal as well, the ability to get rid of 2 permanents with the same name isn't that needed anyways. I mean, it's a nice bonus if you get it, but it's not really needed, because you can just play a mass removal spell if that's the kind of effect you want. So yeah, not really that needed. Didn't find a room for it in the deck, so I'm leaving it behind. Then we move on to the Gloryscale Viashino, the Lightning Angel, and the Witchmaw Nephilim. So basically the 4-drop creatures for this deck. Sip of water. So yeah, basically, why am I running Gloryscale Viashinos and Lightning Angel in a deck that focuses about big dumb creatures? Why am I running these small fries? Well, because Gloryscale Viashino isn't really a small fry, is it? You probably play it turn 3 after playing Rampant Growth turn 2, and then turn 4 this guy attacks for 6 damage, which is just not bad at all. So that's good. And that 6 damage means that you're more likely to kill them with Lavalanche, you're more likely to get them to a reasonable health total to be able to easily kill them. And that's really important. I mean, just if you've done 6 damage to them, then they're at 14 life, which means playing 4 Prophetic Bolts would kill them. And there's only 2 Prophetic Bolts in the deck, but there's also 2 Naya Charms, so the possibility is there. I mean, it just opens up so many more possibilities if you get them down to a lower life total at the start of the match. And this may be before they can do something about it, which is important, because otherwise they may just end up controlling you while you're controlling them, and that kind of leads to slow situations, and this deck doesn't always work too well in slow situations, especially not if they're still at 20 life and Lavalanche doesn't immediately kill them, which is where you want to get them. So that's why this guy is good, because he brings them down to 6. He brings them down to 14 if he even gets to attack once, and that's great. If he even gets anywhere once, I should say. Lightning Angel, same deal. Play it turn 3 after Rampant Growth turn 2. Means that you get in for 3 damage turn 3 and 3 damage turn 4. Again, they're at 14 life. Better for you, since they're at a reasonable life total to get within reach of your burn. So that's great. Witch Maw Nephilim, not that great because he's too slow. So again, same example. Turn 2 Rampant Growth, turn 3. Well, I guess this requires 4 different kinds of land, so it's harder to get there. But let's say you're lucky and you're able to cast this turn 3, then it's probably gonna be turn 4 though. But let's say you get lucky and you happen to have just the right manas to be able to cast this guy turn 3. Then still turn 4, you cast 1 spell, maybe 2 spells. No, you'd have to play 2 Rampant Growths. That's not gonna happen, no. So 1 spell, and he gets a +1/+2/+1/+1 counter, and he attacks for a whopping 3 damage. Yeah, not that great. And starting out as 1/1, and again, soon as you can play him turn 3, means if Mindstorms goes first, then they already have their Electrode on the table, and that kills this guy without him being able to ever do anything. So yeah, not that great, too slow. And you don't need this guy to get big either. Like, yeah, great, he can be a big trampling guy, but I've got enough big guys, so why would I need this guy that slowly gets there when I can just drop a guy that immediately is there? And it's not like that's gonna take me all that many more turns to play either, because I got Ramp. So yeah, there's not really a point to playing Witch Maw Nephilim in this deck, I found. So moving on to the allied strategies, I guess I want to discuss. I guess All Sun's Dawn is an obvious inclusion for the card advantage cards. I guess if we're on to card advantage, well, All Sun's Dawn gets you back 5 colors from each color, and it gets you the exact card you need because you can pick them. So that's great. So this is an obvious inclusion. Then there's Prophetic Bolt, which is kind of like in the allied strategies. The way I see it is you're probably gonna get like 4 cards with allied strategies, maybe 5 if you have all the colors on there. But let's say you get 4, and then if you instead play Prophetic Bolt, you also get to look at those 4 cards you would have otherwise drawn with allied strategies and pick the best one and get that one. And you've dealt them 4 damage, which brings them within reach of, again, the Lavalanche. So I don't consider this to be a strictly better card than allied strategies, but in this deck I do consider it to be a better card. So obviously I want to include both of the Prophetic Bolts and All Sun's Dawn, and that leaves room for, you know, how many more cards draw do I really need? Well, let's say 2. That's what I've decided on. Is I don't need more than 2 more than that. Card draw is pretty important. I included 1 originally with the All Sun's Dawn and the 2 Prophetic Bolts, and I found that I had a few hands where I didn't really profit from all the card advantage as much as I would have liked to. So I included 1 more, and now I feel good about it. And I did the same thing with the ramp, is just include and test and see how it goes. And that's how I got to my numbers for the Cultivates and the Rampant Growths. That's how I got to my numbers for how many allied strategies I want to run. So, that's that. Maelstrom Archangel is just an incredible creature in this deck. Yeah, I now feel bad about saying Enigma Sphinx is the best creature, but I don't know. They're both, all the creatures are just amazing. Let's just keep it at that. All the creatures are amazing. But Maelstrom Archangel, again, you want to be fast with this deck. Like, at first, I didn't really see the point to this guy, because once you're at 5 mana, you're pretty close to playing whatever you want in this deck. But the point is, you get to deal 5 damage turn 6. Or turn 5 if you play this guy turn 4. You get to deal 5 damage that turn, which is good because you get in some damage again, and you want to bring their life total down as fast as possible. This is not an aggressive deck. I mean, when I'm saying you want to be fast, I don't mean that this deck should play like an aggressive deck or anything. What I mean to say is, this deck shouldn't play as an extremely slow deck, because then you're not doing anything, and that is when the opponent takes advantage of that, and it's a weak spot in the deck, and you want to be able to deal with that. So, you want to make this deck as fast as possible, while still retaining the spirit of the deck, and still, you know, still making it a viable deck, and all that. Either way, so Maelstrom Archangel just being able to deal the 5 damage at that point is pretty good. And since it's flying, it's gonna get by them, which is more than I can say about Child of Alara, which of course Trample is a little bit less powerful than flying in my experience. Although Trample and flying is great. Ask Mr. Sky Swallower, but and Fusion Elemental doesn't have any evasion, so yeah, he's out for that anyways. So yeah, that's already good. And then his ability means you can play anything from your hand, and that speeds you along as well. That means you can suddenly be dropping 3 creatures instead of 2 a turn, or 2 creatures instead of 1 a turn, and that really matters when you want to not be too slow. So I guess, yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? The deck has trouble against tempo-oriented plays, so let's make some tempo-oriented plays with the deck itself and see if that helps, and it does. So, I guess the strategy should be obvious by now. Child of Alara, 6/6 trample, big guy, has the evasion. But when it dies, destroy all non-land permanents, they can't be regenerated. You may see this as an advantage, and I certainly did at first, where I was like, well, that means I got a big guy on the field, and now they better deal with this before they deal with anything else, and that's amazing. But the problem with that is that works really well against decks that this deck already works really well against. Any deck that suffers from their creatures being mass removed is probably going to lose when they play against you. However, any deck that doesn't care about that, such as Mill, such as Born of Flame, basically any deck that can kill you without needing to really play creatures into your mass removal, that kind of deck is also not gonna have a hard time dealing with Child of Alara, so it doesn't really fill up your weaknesses. So, I mean, making this deck stronger in matchups it's already strong against, that doesn't really make too much sense. So that's why I don't want Child of Alara in there. And it means you're dirtling again. It means if you play this, you're probably not playing anything else until they've dealt with this. That slows you down, especially against the Mill deck, against Crosswinds, against Born of, etc. So yeah, I'm really going in circles with my logic, but I assume it should make sense to you now. Fusion Elemental, just not as good as Gloryscale Viashino, because he comes in a turn later. They probably have something to deal with it, or a blocker by them, whereas Gloryscale Viashino has more likelihood of getting in there for a turn, so that's better. And by the way, Gloryscale Viashino, something I didn't mention, you can of course, with all the instant spells in this deck, with Naya Charm and such, basically all the charms, you can of course play a spell on their turn, a multicolor spell that is, and make this guy bigger on block step as well. I mean, it should be obvious, but sometimes you miss these kind of things, you know? So why not point it out? Why not point it out? But yeah, he's better than Fusion Elemental, so why would I play Fusion Elemental? If there's Gloryscale Viashino in this deck, that doesn't make sense. Finest Hour, it's a really good enchantment. I've certainly lost to it before, and I can certainly see how you can definitely win really well with it. It also combos really well with another card I'm not running, Forosh, the Hunter, because this guy can just kill somebody in one attack. Or, well, 2 attacks, but in one turn with Finest Hour out. So that's pretty ridiculous. Yeah, just basically it combos well with anything though. Being able to get in more damage means that, again, you're bringing them lower. So, yeah, I mean, it should be obvious. However, the problem is, I don't feel like I have enough creatures to really feel safe in running an enchantment instead of another creature. You know what I mean? Because this guy requires me to have a creature to actually get a benefit out of it. And if I run this, then I run one less creature. So it sort of works against itself. And this is always the problem with enchantment, with any kind, and artifacts as well, is that if you run them, you run one less creature. But in this deck, it really ends up hurting the deck. And even though this card is insanely powerful, you can't run it for that reason. Or, I mean, I don't run it for that reason. But it's certainly not a bad card. Maelstrom Nexus, again, if you would run this, you would probably run one less creature. And that's not really a great thing to do. And also, playing this turn 4 or turn 5 means you don't play anything else. And again, you're being slow. You're not doing anything that turn. And you want to get in there, you want to do something. And I know that may be counterintuitive to a deck like this, that you want to be fast. But trust me, you do want to be fast. You don't want to just sit there and do nothing for a few turns, because that's when you lose. So, this slows you down even more than the deck. The deck is already kind of slow, so don't make it more slower by playing spells that cost 5 mana and don't do anything the turn you play them. And surely it's going to give you a lot of card advantage, but you've already got a lot of card advantage with this deck, so it's not really that needed. So moving on, the Broodmate Dragons are just insane value. You get 2 dudes for 1 card. I was almost gonna say for the price of 1, but it's 6 mana isn't really the price of 1 dude, is it? But I mean, you get 2 dudes for 1 card, and that's insanely useful when you consider that you only have 10 creatures in the deck again, and that means they need to use more than 1 removal spell, or they need to use mass removal to get rid of this. And that means basically, in the first case, if they use more than 1 removal spell, they're 2 for 1ing themselves, and in the case of the mass removal, at least they're not 2 for 1ing you with the mass removal. So, that's good. And that, yeah, it's good. That's why the card is good. Defiler of Souls is a creature that doesn't do anything the turn it comes in. It may do something later. Then again, it may not. Who knows? They may not be running monocolored creatures. It requires 2 swamps. So far, the only mana cost that they have more than 1 of in any card is that I need 2 planes for Imperial Archangel and for Day of Judgment. So this would be, if I included this would mean I would now also need to get 2 swamps, which isn't that devastating, but it's a consideration, you know. And there's really no need to include this guy. I do consider it a great sideboard card though, and a nice way to deal with, for instance, Auramancer, or Aura Servants, I mean. So if you happen to be in a tournament or something, and you want to sideboard in anything against Aura Servants with this deck, then do give Defiler of Souls an idea, a good thinking, because Sacrifice gets by Indestructibility, gets by Hexproof, gets by all those kinds of things that make Aura Servants annoying to deal with. So this deals with that, and most of their good creatures are monocolored. So, and of course any monocolored deck this is great against. But do keep in mind that if you play this and they use a removal spell on it, then it hasn't done anything. Whereas Broodmate Dragon, you still have another 4/4 dragon. And Enigma Sphinx, you've cascaded that turn. Magister Sphinx, you've used this ability when he comes in. Imperial Archangel, probably not gonna be able to deal with it because it has Shroud. So, just keep that in mind. That means, that's why I included these bombs and not these. So, Elder Mastery, I don't know what this card is doing in this deck. Like, okay, it's a free cost card. I guess that's why. But, like, why would anyone play this? Seriously? 6 mana enchantment, +3/+3 and flying. Whenever enchanted creature deals damage to a player, that player discards 2 cards. I'm at 6 mana, they probably don't even have 2 cards in hand anymore. No thanks. Megalonov, 6 mana, 6/6 Vigilance Trample guy that does some stuff, but again, if they kill it the moment it comes in, it hasn't done anything. Whereas these other guys do stuff if they kill it immediately. Already talked about Pale Recluses. Forage the Hunter. Again, of course, great with Finest Hour, but I'm not running that. And also, again, if they kill it the moment it comes in, it hasn't done anything. Charnel Horde Worm. Also, they kill it the moment it comes in, it hasn't done anything. Karvak the Merciless. This is a great creature, actually. This guy is really good, and I was definitely debating on whether I should run that or Magister Sphinx. In the end, I went with Magister Sphinx because it's a little bit more foolproof in getting them to the 10 damage from where Lavalanche is probably going to kill them. So, again, strategy, Lavalanche. And I know it's just one card in the deck, but it really does define my strategy a lot, doesn't it? But this deck has a lot of card draw, so you're going to find it very soon. It doesn't take too long to get to the Lavalanche, so you may as well make that a big strategy. And it really does help when you have just that option of burning them out instead of them being able to deal with your creatures as you play them. So this guy also, he can save you from imminent death, of course, if you really need to. But the best thing to do is to bring them from 20 to 10 and then kill them with Lavalanche the next turn, even if they do deal with this guy. Karvak the Merciless is great though, but because this guy is a little bit more foolproof with the Lavalanche, they could kill this with like a 2 mana kill spell, and then you wouldn't have really done much with it. You get to deal 2 damage to the face with it, and that's not really that useful, at least not in comparison with Enigma Sphinx and Magister Sphinx. So that's worst case scenario though. There's a lot of best case scenarios where Karvak the Merciless absolutely rapes the opponent, and they can't do anything because he's on the board. So he's a good card, but just almost made the cut but doesn't. Anyways, Violent Ultimatum. This means I need to get 3 mountains, 2 swamps and 2 forests that I otherwise wouldn't need to be able to play my spells. So it's already out because of that. I did like using this spell against somebody playing the 5-color deck though, when I was running the Rogues Gallery. That was actually quite hilarious. He played Violent Ultimatum against me and killed my board. And then proceeded to swing on in and try to kill me that same turn. And then I played Memory Plunder, and I got their Violent Ultimatum from their graveyard, and I killed their guys, and also destroyed their last island. Or their only island, at least. I mean, not their last. But yeah, I destroyed their only island and the 2 creatures which were attacking me, and went on to win that game. That was pretty hilarious. So good card to use against Mana Mastery for sure. But as Mana Mastery, I don't know if I want to use that card. It's a little bit too ridiculous. I can certainly see the use for it, but you're not always going to be able to cast it, and it's not always going to be useful. So, Conflux. Yeah, more Dirtling. If you get to play this and you don't lose that turn, you're probably going to win. Or, yeah, you're just extremely likely to win because you get the 5 cards you need, among which obviously Lavalanche, Prophetic Bolt, you can get Magister Sphinx, so those 3 already should be able to, in some combination, kill them. And then you get, I don't know, Enigma Sphinx or something. Whatever you need, basically. Whatever. And I guess All Sun's Dawn would be a good thing that, in case all of that still doesn't work to kill them, then you still got the All Sun's Dawn to try it again. So yeah, if you get to play Conflux and don't kill you, then you probably win. But if they do kill you that turn, then you wasted your turn playing a big spell when you could have otherwise have played a big creature and done something about losing, you know? So it's kind of a win more card in that sense. Or at least I'm not losing yet, so now I'm going to win card. At the very least. But this deck, I mean, the only way is you're gonna lose is if you're already losing when you're at 8. And then you turn it around. So Death Mutation, more ridiculousness. This card, it just isn't even good. Yeah, whatever. Godsire, Vigilance, 8/8. Can make more guys, but again, problem with him is if they kill it, he hasn't done anything that turn. Prince of Thralls, same story here. I guess you can deal them 3 damage for the removal spell they play. But I mean, if you're going that route, then you're better off just using Karvek. He's just better than Prince of Thralls. So yeah, Progenadis. I almost wanted to use this card. I'm actually very happy it's in the format, but I'm not gonna use it in the end. The idea here is it's great in the mirror match because they have to use mass removal or they can't deal with it. And aside from that, it also gets shuffled back in so you can recur it and keep using it again. Which, I mean, Enigma Sphinx does that as well. And more reliably even. But Progenadis also, with his ability, protects you from being milled, at least for a turn. Unless, of course, they've got a Howling Mine or something. Because then you draw 2 cards and you still lose. Progenadis is the only thing left in your library. But the idea is, if they mill your last cards, then Progenadis goes to the graveyard, gets shuffled back into your library, and then your turn is around and you draw Progenadis. And maybe if you have enough mana for some reason, you're able to play Progenadis in Day of Judgment, and the whole cycle begins again, and they can never actually mill you, or I don't know. There's a lot of crazy stuff you can do with this deck, obviously, but that's not very likely to happen that way. But it'll probably at least, it'll maybe at least save you 1 turn from the mill, and that's I guess that's a bonus more than anything. But other than that, yeah, just big guy protection from everything. I mean, sometimes you need protection from everything, you know, what can I say? But I feel like I've got the perfect batch of creatures right here, and I don't feel like I need Progenadis though. Now, I talked about these guys, and the reason for including them being that for at least these 4 is that if they kill it, it's at least done something. And for this one, it's got Shroud, so they probably can't kill it. And plus this guy, of course, saves you from burn. If they're about to kill you when they untap, then, you know, they can't. Or even if they can kill this Archangel, then they probably just use the burn that they were going to use to kill you. And now they're out of cards, and they're top decking, which is good for you. But I haven't talked about why I want Sphinx of the Steel Wind in my deck. And to be honest with you, at first I thought it was a bad card too. Just because of that reason, because this is the only one of these big guys I'm running right now that they can kill immediately, and I haven't done anything with it, and it's an 8 cost. So why am I running this card then? Well, because it also is the only card in my deck with Lifelink, which is very important, and it has a lot of different abilities that may or may not be relevant. Protection from red and from green is very important. This helps you against Pack Instinct. Means it's pseudo Shroud, I guess, because it works against some situations but not against other. But you can get him. I guess there's a lot of card draw, so you can get him at the right time. So you can use him if you need him. But if you don't need him, he's not too much in the way. It's just 1 card that you don't maybe not need. But either way, just being a big lifelink guy, and yeah, he's just really good for his cost. I mean, yeah, just his abilities, the amount of abilities he has, flying, first strike, vigilance, lifelink, just really works really well. And the lifelink, again, important against stuff like burn, or just, you know, if you're in a race, if you're losing the match, then maybe the lifelink can turn it around for you. And sure, if they kill it that turn, then it doesn't do anything. Oh well, it's just 1 card. I think we can live with that. So anyways, that's the story here, and I'm sticking to it. That is my deck build. I hope you enjoyed this little video, although I shouldn't say little as it's been 50 minutes since I started talking. More water before my throat dries out. But I did want to get in depth with this deck, and it's taken a while. It sure has taken a while to get this deck build rolling since the deck pack came out. I've been faster with previous deck builds, but this deck I really wanted to do perfectly. I like this deck a lot, and the other problem was that a lot of people were running Mana Mastery, and you don't always learn too much out of playing a mirror match 50 times in a row. So I needed to play a few games against decks that aren't either Mana Mastery or a deck that's designed to win against Mana Mastery, although that did influence my design for the deck a lot. Is to hopefully be able to kill those decks that are designed to win against Mana Mastery anyway, because just filling in the weak spots. So that did help a little bit, but eventually I did want to see a few matchups against every deck before I could make up my mind about what was a good card and what was not. And this deck certainly has a lot of really good cards, like Witchmaw Nephilim I consider a bad card. And I guess Elder Mastery I consider a bad card, but other than that, well, Death Mutation is a bad card, and Charnel Horde Worm is probably a bad card. Prince of Thralls also not too exciting, but all the other cards are good. All the other cards are good, so there's no obvious exclusions or inclusions in this deck, and I really did want to do a lot of testing before I decided on what I wanted to keep and what I didn't want to keep in the deck. So, either way, my name's been Nemo. My name will still be Nemo next time, and we're gonna get some gameplay with this deck. So, see you next time. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye bye.